Karma Rental Shop. Would you like to return your villain? Taxi villain. It was a Thursday night, with sleet mixed into the rain. The General Hospital's billing office finally went dark just before midnight. I shook out my wet umbrella a few times before stepping out of the lobby. All day I'd been emotionally shredded between guardians shouting over hospital bills and a relentless flood of patients. The back of my neck had gone stiff as if weighted with lead, and a bitter taste rose in my mouth. On a day like this, I had no strength left to endure the crowds on a bus or the subway. I went out to the main road and called a taxi through the app. But all I got, 5 or 6 times over, was the message, "No driver available." After more than 20 minutes standing in the cold wind on the roadside, an old model taxi with its vacant light on came crawling toward me from a distance. I waved as if I'd just met my salvation. The car stopped in front of me, and the passenger window came down, just a couple of finger widths. The man in the driver's seat glanced at me over his reading glasses and asked, curtly, "Where to?" When I told him my destination, he unlocked the door with obvious reluctance. The moment I opened the door with its rattling sound, what hit my nose was a foul mix of damp cigarette smoke and old mold. The seats were covered in stains of unknown origin, and the floor mats were a mess of mud. Before I'd even fully settled into the back seat, the taxi lurched forward violently. My body was thrown back, and my shoulders slammed hard into the door handle. "Careful, you'll break the door." The driver's first words weren't an apology, but a scolding. He glared at me through the rearview mirror, then wrenched the wheel irritably. Reckless driving was clearly second nature to him. If the gap to the car ahead narrowed even slightly, he laid on the horn. When the light turned yellow, he only stepped harder on the gas and shot through the intersection. Every time my body swayed side to side, the seatbelt dug into my chest. Feeling nauseous, I tried to crack the window a little. The driver snapped at me harshly. "It's cold. Close it." If the driver catches a cold, will the passenger take responsibility? Kids these days only think about themselves. I said nothing and took my hand off the window switch. But the driver's rudeness didn't stop. He turned up the radio and began muttering along with all sorts of curses at whatever was being broadcast. Then suddenly he turned his fire on me. "You work at a company or something? You know, young people these days, when you catch a cab on a night like this, you should thank the driver first thing. There's traffic, there's risk of an accident, and he's still giving you a ride. Isn't that something?" I didn't answer, just looked out the window. My silence seemed to irritate him, and he shook the car around even more blatantly. He hit the brakes hard on purpose, throwing my body forward, and barreled over speed bumps without slowing down at all, nearly knocking my head against the ceiling. I started to feel carsick and clamped a hand over my mouth. After a whole day spent filing away other people's pain as paperwork at the hospital, this taxi was yet another hell waiting for me. The driver's misconduct didn't end there. Instead of taking the fastest, most direct road to my destination, he suddenly turned right into a narrow, dark alley. "Sir, this isn't the way. Please take the main road," he answered mockingly. "You think you know this road better than I do? This is a shortcut. Just sit tight." But the road was under construction, so narrow that barely one car could pass. The meter climbed steadily with every minute we sat stuck. It was blatant detouring and stalling for time. When he got into a spat with another driver in the cramped alley, he rolled down the window and hurled unspeakable curses at the other man. His words seemed to mix into the thick air of the cramped taxi and press against my skin. A ride that would normally cost around 6,001 had, after all that circling, run the meter past 11,000. When I arrived and handed him my card, he snatched it and clicked his tongue. "On a day like this, you ought to have cash ready. What's left after the fees get taken out. Just my luck today." Even when he handed the card back, he practically flung it into my hand. The moment I stepped out of the car, the cold air filled my lungs, but my twisted stomach wouldn't settle. The taxi splashed muddy water onto my pants again as it sped violently away. At the mouth of the dark alley, I spotted a man standing beneath a street lamp. He wore a beige suit and carried a worn brown bag. Even standing in the rain, he looked as natural as if he'd always belonged there. Perfect weather for business. You've had quite a rough time out in the rain. The brown-haired man spoke to me plainly. His name tag read Igial. He opened his bag and pulled out a transparent glass device that looked like a card stand. That driver's car. Pretty heavy in there, wasn't it? People who feed on others' exhaustion usually have no idea how much weight they themselves give off. My boss really hates that sort of thing. Who are you? A sales representative for the Karma rental shop. If you can just remember his license plate number, I can rent you a Karma black box. It collects every bit of physical and verbal pressure he inflicted on his passengers today, and returns it to him precisely. As for the cost, don't worry, it's settled with the energy released when he falls apart. As if entranced, I recited the taxi's plate number. Igial flicked his fingers in the air a few times, then handed the device to me. This syncs with your phone. Would you like to begin the settlement right now? I nodded without a word. Igial smiled faintly and walked off into the rain. Back home, I threw off my wet clothes and sat down on the bed. When I turned on my phone screen, an app I'd never seen before was already running. On the screen, the inside of the very taxi I'd just gotten out of played in black and white. The driver, Mr. Park, was still chewing gum, searching for his next prey. Soon, a young woman climbed into the taxi. Before she'd even finished loading her bags, the driver hit the gas, and the woman let out a short scream as her head hit the back of the front seat. At that moment, the glass device in my hand let off a blue glow. Click. On the phone screen, Mr. Park's body suddenly snapped backward. It was as if some enormous invisible hand had seized him by the back of the neck and slammed him into the seat. Whoa! What the? Startled, Mr. Park nearly lost his grip on the wheel. He gripped it tight, as if unable to believe what was happening to his own body. But out of habit, when he yanked the wheel hard without signaling, his upper body twisted almost 90 degrees the other way, and his head slammed hard into the window. Bang! A dull thud rang out clearly through the speaker. The female passenger seemed to feel no vibration at all, calmly looking at her phone. Only Mr. Park was being shaken mercilessly inside the car by some invisible force. Terrified, he slowed down, but the moment he hit the brakes, his body was thrown forward toward the windshield again. The seatbelt tightened across his chest like a sharp metal wire, choking off his breath. What is this? What's wrong with the car?